All right, welcome to another episode of Divine Ethereal Beings. Another topic, another thing. Like I said, I'm excited to kind of getting back into this notion where I feel more relevant to talk about different things again rather than just energy updates. Not that they're not fun to do as well, but I'm just it's such interesting times that we're in right now, and there's so much coming and goings of all these things, and it's it's an intense time still. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's been people reaching out being like, "Oh my God, is this stuff true? Things that are coming out about the world and everything right now." Or, I thought this was supposed to be a good year. I thought 26 in the horse year was gonna be, fast growth, momentum, all the things. But I think there's too much emphasis put on in our own minds and our own labels, maybe, that, expansiveness and growth and all these things are fun and light and airy, and we kind of forget about the duality that comes with that. So I think that's why maybe some people are like, what the hell, we're supposed to be in the new year, and yet there's still some chaos, or there's still things going on that don't feel very good, or maybe don't, like, we don't conceptualize as very good things. And yet at the same time, it's sort of a recognition, like, it's all falling apart for a reason. Like, that is a part of chaos. Chaos, destroys, but it also makes space to create something new and exciting, and something that's going to serve us better as a humanity and a collective. Like, that was the reason why this was all kind of like called the Great Awakening when COVID and everything started coming through, right? Like, more of us are waking up to choosing, to deciding, to taking back our power. And so the intensity of everything that's sort of going on right now, I mean, I get it. It's, in the brain where we're always sort of looking for the next thing that's going to be better. And instead of being in the moment and enjoying that, and recognizing, like, I can be still in a balanced state, even with maybe what the world looks like as chaos. But when we hold a frequency of knowing, like, that gets to create something even more beautiful, then we get to have more, I guess, enlightenment and excitement feeling that comes along with that. And, like, if you listen to the old earth and new earth energy of I'm losing my words, sorry. Podcast episodes. That's what happens when I start getting all these downloads and I'm trying to keep up with everything. But if you listen to that podcast episode, you'll see what I'm saying, like, where things become the splits, like, literally happening at more of that physical level now. You're really starting to recognize, like, who might be sort of sitting in which boat. And it's a frequency thing, absolutely. I mean, we're not splitting into like two different Earths necessarily, of course, like I said, but it's that state of being, right? And so what can happen, like, when these things start to become more recognized, or we're observing more of these things, of course, like, the mind, it might have a little bit of trouble being like, well, why don't they just see it, in this way, or vice versa, right? Because that could be coming from either side of perspective. And it's like, this episode, I was like, well, what are we gonna, like, really touch on? Because it just feels like there's so many different directions we could be going in at this point. And it just felt more relevant to kind of talk about, like, those things of, like, the intensity and the stuff that's happening right now, and kind of just calling, like, the bullshit meter, like, knowing and seeing and being able to, like, once you kind of see it, you never unsee it, you know what I mean? So it's hard to go along with somebody's words anymore. It's so much easier now to feel into the actual intention, even if it's not something you ever really did before, you're naturally picking up on that, because as the ascension process is happening, like, we're naturally all moving in that direction of being able to feel and sense energy at a higher level again. And the notion of being like, okay, well, if it doesn't feel very good, I'm not going to just ignore that anymore. It just doesn't seem to line up with whatever the person's saying, or whatever the actions might be, right? So it's like the big bullshit community, the bullshit meter has definitely gotten a lot more prominent, I think, as we're moving through into the new year energy. And as, again, like, they just kind of even brought up, like, the horse energy will move fast, but at the same time, sometimes it'll be complete stillness. And within that stillness is where some of our integration is going to happen, but also some of where, we start to see some of these bigger things, or the duality starting to come into a different light. It's like there's enough people aware and awake now and taking back power in themselves and being like, look, I'm going to question this shit. And so by doing that, over the last little bit, now, when things are starting to come to the surface, they're coming quick and fast to see if there can be a different kind of reaction of overload really happening. And yet at the same time, it's like you can see people's bullshit meter going, oh, I don't know, I don't know. I don't feel like the intention of this is very pure, very good. And yet at the same time, we don't maybe want to accept all the things that are coming to the surface, because maybe they're beyond what we ever wish could actually be truth, I guess, right? Um, but at the same point, the bullshit meter just kind of goes off crazy even in everyday life now, right? And that's where you'll see a lot of people maybe getting frustrated at times, a little bit more irritable, especially for the people that are a little bit more aware of that, and just even being in situations or places with other people can be like more intense even right now, just because when you know somebody's words are literally not lining up with what might be going on or being portrayed as their energy, it can quickly become a space of like, I really just don't even want to be here anymore because it's just so inauthentic. And you'll start to see that even more with businesses, products, things that if you are aware of already that happening in people, I would suggest as a fun little kind of exercise to start looking that as business as well, because you'll see the younger generations have already sort of been doing that for a while. You see a lot of people in their 20s now are sort of more less looking at business and things at a level of how do they make me feel rather than what are they kind of portraying and how good are they about advertising it in a way, you know? So that's like, again, something that sort of naturally they started doing because their frequency, they were born at a different time, right? They just resonate with frequency differently. So you'll start to see even more of that as the year goes on too, is like the bullshit meter and all that kind of stuff starts to kind of flare up every now and then. And it's not a bad thing. And I'm not like, I don't want anybody to be feeling like, oh man, like, is it ever going to end? Because I mean, we have a duality here, but the balancing of the scales has to happen no matter what, you know? So if we had just had the year of the snake and all the chaos started and things really started to crumble, then we're going to have the year of the horse, of course, but that chaos is going to kind of follow into the year of the horse a bit too, because it's still crumbling, especially for certain things. And that might still yet take another while. We might still be seeing, when we will still be seeing chaos in 27, but it'll be a different kind of chaos. I'm not going to totally elaborate into that yet, just because like I don't want to give it's not even ideas because like I can't even put it into words yet. Like that's the thing. Like I just know there's really big shift coming in 27 as well at a different level though. Like what we've been seeing is more at that individual. Yeah, we're working into the collective now. As we're coming together, we're shifting, we're changing at those levels. But like 27 is a big year for a different kind of shift. And we'll just kind of hint at it being more like a galactic kind of disclosure kind of thing. So that's going to be kind of part of what's going to happen in 27. And that's really going to change the trajectory for us on Earth about where we kind of end up going. But it's so important too that people start remembering like this bullshit meter's not going anywhere. And the more you try to ignore it, the more you are going to probably find yourself being like, oh man, I really wish I would have just listened to myself and recognizing, that person's true intention, or maybe that situation just really wasn't suited for me. So instead of being all in on someone else's really good words of convincing you or being, telling you that this is the way it should be, to really start turning inwards and listening to more of that meter in yourself, because that's going to help also navigating the chaos and the things that are coming. And at that higher level, in the world in general, it's easy to kind of get sucked into some of the harsher things that are going on, but there's also really good things happening that just aren't being talked about, of course, right? We know that the news is not very good at sharing things that are actually good, that make us feel good or happy, but also recognizing too that those feelings don't last as long, right? If we can talk about something negative that makes somebody feel, you know, confused or gross or mad or angry or shameful, like those are going to be the ones that linger because those are the ones that get the story started, right? It's like they just said to me, how many of you can get a compliment by 10 people in a day, but one person comes up and says something negative and that's what you hyper focus on, right? It's the same kind of thing that's going on right now, is this hyper focus on the negative, if you want to call it that, or the dense. So you got to remember, if we want to see more of that light energy and that balance happening, you got to recognize that around yourself, picking out those things for how lovely of a day it is, even as simply as creating that kind of vibration, because the bullshit meter likes that kind of stuff because it's authentic, right? So it's that place where you can see it, you can recognize it in other people, but don't get too wrapped up in being like, oh man, maybe I should say something. This is not really a time that's super great for words, because we are sort of in this process of shifting and this energy becoming more apparent. And so words are often how people try to put up their mask, or how they kind of try to make themselves feel like, more, I don't even want to say more settled or more comfortable, but it kind of, I guess, is, because we'll use words to help our situation, right? So or help ourselves in our mindset or whatever it might be. So words kind of are really irrelevant to what's actually the energy might be saying. And so it's just again one of those things where you might not want to have a conversation with someone if you're feeling like, maybe they're really not okay or anything like that, unless you know them well enough to get a true answer from them that they feel safe enough to share that with you. But safety and this feeling of safety has been really rocked right now. So it's that place where if like somebody just doesn't want to talk about it, even if maybe you express things and you feel better, and maybe you have done that before, and maybe you're feeling like maybe that's not quite on par anymore right now. That's also okay because that's kind of going with this energy shift too, right? It's sort of recognizing that words right now maybe are just not really matching a whole lot of the frequency that we're integrating in with, or that's kind of coming to our planet. So it's just the remembrance of the little things right now that are going to be really helpful as we sort of move forward. Don't get too far ahead, don't get too wrapped up in too much information. Finding your truth in all of it is super important. Being able to trust yourself and knowing like if it just doesn't feel aligned with you, that's okay. Even if it does feel aligned for someone else, it doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just to remember you got to follow your frequency, you got to follow your truth, and you let them do the same thing, and just letting these things kind of fall away or whoever's there fall away and not thinking so hard about everything anymore is just going to really help navigate you into more of that new earth energy, and you're going to feel more of that expansiveness even in the midst of all the chaos that still might be feeling like it's going on. So it's not bad. It's that's I think I it's not a word I really care to use anymore is bad. Because it just is not aligned. That's maybe more of what I prefer to hear being said than bad. It's just not aligned. And as much as some of the stuff again coming to surface right now at a collective level doesn't feel very good, it's just a recognition of being like, hey, but if it's in the light now, it can never not be unseen. You know what I mean? So people are not just shoving their heads in the sand anymore. I mean, there's been people talking about this for years and years and years. This is nothing new. This is like hundreds of years, right? Stuff that's coming to the surface now. So it's not new, but what's new is people are not willing to put their heads in the sand and ignore it any longer. And that is exciting because that says, look, we deserve something better here. We can choose something better for ourselves now because we're finally waking up to understanding our power has always existed within us, right? So now that my rambling on that is about done, I guess, I hope it was helpful to some degree. I mean, I feel like it might have felt like we were kind of skirting on a few things. Don't get me wrong, there definitely were. It's not things I actually outright want to say. We all know what's going on here, at that collective level for the most part. And it doesn't need to be said out loud. It's being plastered all over everywhere anyway. But at the same point, I think the alternative of that is just recognizing like the bullshit meter is definitely loud and proud and it's not going anywhere soon. And it's the more you lean into that truth in yourself, the easier this is all going to be to ride that wave as we continue to move towards, throughout 26 and into 27, and then what's going to come through 27 and 28. So it's huge years we're in right now, huge years, but they're extremely exciting to be here because this has not happened on Earth in a long time and never to this degree. We're in a very unique space right now, so enjoy it as much as we can because there's no point in being overly stressed when we don't even actually know the full outcome of anything yet. But I can tell you it is more exciting to think about. It could be a much higher capacity and a much easier place to be excited by rather than having all the fear and being concerned for things that are maybe going on at this point in time. It's it's just ride your horse and be aware, be the observer, but maybe don't necessarily feel the need to constantly try to help anybody up on the horse or try to prove anything because there's nothing to be proven. It's just going to be a matter of which side do you want to be on, old earth or new earth, because that comes down to your own decision. Nobody can tell you where to be, but there can definitely be persuasion to be on, especially old earth energy with the fear and everything that's going on. If you don't want to be there, just choose not to be there. It's as simple as that. It really is. But the brain's going to want to make it try and complicate it because we've been told everything should be complicated here. So that's also something that the simplicity of everything is just becoming so much more um relevant, I guess, and just easier to see, and that it just doesn't need to be difficult, it can be a lot simpler than that. What becomes complicated is the way we make ourselves feel over it. So, anyway, another thing for another day, maybe. But I hope in some way that this helps you out just a touch, and you can just sort of take the tidbits that again resonate for you here and run with those. And other than that, we'll see you on the next episode.